Business and the environment. Externalities. The tension between environmentalism and capitalism is a long-standing issue, as the pursuit of profit by businesses can sometimes conflict with the need to protect the environment and preserve natural resources. The governing concept behind this tension is the concept of the externality. An externality is a cost or a benefit that affects individuals or parties who are not directly involved in a transaction or activity. In other words, it is a consequence of an economic activity that is not reflected in the cost or benefit of that activity. For example, air pollution from a factory is an externality because it affects individuals and communities who do not receive any direct benefits from the factory's operations. Similarly, a new shopping mall may generate increased traffic congestion and noise pollution, which affects nearby residents who did not receive any direct benefits from the construction of the mall. Externality is an important concept in business ethics because it highlights the social and environmental impacts of economic activities and raises questions about who should be responsible for addressing these impacts. Businesses have a moral and ethical responsibility to consider the externalities of their activities and to take steps to minimize the negative impacts on society and the environment. For example, a business that pollutes the air or water may be creating a negative externality that harms the health and well-being of local communities. In this case, the business has a responsibility to take steps to minimize its pollution, such as investing in cleaner technology or reducing its emissions. Similarly, a business that generates excessive noise or traffic may be creating negative externalities that affect nearby residents. In this case, the business may have a responsibility to work with local communities to mitigate these impacts, such as implementing traffic calming measures or sound barriers. When markets are not self-correcting to ensure that firms absorb their production costs to minimize pollution and waste, as in this case, government intervention may be necessary. Environmental disasters. This tension has been highlighted by a number of high-profile environmental disasters, including the story of Love Canal, Deepwater Horizon, and Volkswagen's Dieselgate scandal. The Love Canal story is a notorious example of the tension between environmentalism and capitalism. Love Canal was a neighborhood in Niagara Falls, New York, that was built on top of a toxic waste dump. The waste was generated by a local chemical company, Occidental Hooker Chemical, which had buried over 20,000 tons of hazardous waste in the area in the 1940s and 1950s. In the 1970s, residents began to report health problems, and it was discovered that toxic waste was seeping into their homes and contaminating the air and water. This led to a massive environmental cleanup and the passage of the Superfund law, which established a federal program to clean up toxic waste sites. Eventually, Occidental Hooker was found to be negligent, but it was not proven that they acted with reckless or wanton disregard for human rights. Still, the incident caused enormous rethinking of corporation responsibility to protect neighbors of their activities. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill is another example of the tension between environmentalism and capitalism. In 2010, an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico operated by oil company BP exploded, causing the largest marine oil spill in history. The spill released millions of barrels of oil into the ocean, causing significant damage to the environment and local economies. The disaster led to a major cleanup effort and calls for increased regulation of the oil industry to prevent future spills. Volkswagen's Dieselgate scandal is a more recent example of the tension between environmentalism and capitalism. In 2015, it was discovered that Volkswagen had installed software in its diesel vehicles that allowed them to cheat emissions tests. The vehicles emitted up to 40 times more nitrogen oxide than allowed under U.S. law, leading to significant environmental harm and public health risks. The scandal led to a massive recall of affected vehicles and significant fines for the company. These examples illustrate the tension between environmentalism and capitalism as businesses may prioritize profit over environmental concerns. However, they also highlight the importance of effective regulation and accountability to prevent environmental disasters and protect the health and well-being of communities. To address this tension, it is important to establish strong environmental regulations that require businesses to prioritize sustainability and to hold them accountable for any harm caused by their actions. Additionally, consumers can play a role in promoting environmental sustainability by choosing to purchase products from companies that prioritize sustainability and by supporting policies that promote environmental protection. Oil spills. Oil spills can be major environmental and economic disasters with significant moral implications. They can be caused by human error, technical failures, or natural disasters and result in the release of large quantities of oil into the environment, which can have long-lasting effects on the ecosystem and local communities. Two examples of oil spills that illustrate these moral implications are the Chevron Texaco oil spill in Peru and the Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska. In 2010, a Chevron Texaco oil pipeline ruptured in the Amazonian region of Peru, spilling more than 2 million gallons of crude oil into the environment. The spill affected more than 70,000 people and destroyed the livelihoods of indigenous communities that rely on fishing and farming for survival. The spill also contaminated the water supply, leading to a public health crisis and significant environmental damage. Chevron Texaco initially denied responsibility for the spill, but subsequent investigations revealed that the company had failed to maintain the pipeline and had ignored warning signs of a potential rupture. The Exxon Valdez oil spill in 1989 is another example of the moral implications of oil spills. The Exxon Valdez, an oil tanker owned by Exxon, ran aground in Prince William Sound, Alaska, spilling more than 11 million gallons of crude oil into the ocean. The spill devastated local communities and wildlife, killing hundreds of thousands of birds, fish, and marine mammals. The response to the spill was slow and inadequate, and Exxon was criticized for downplaying the severity of the disaster and for its slow response to the cleanup effort. The spill resulted in significant damage to the environment and local communities. Oil spills can have long-lasting effects on ecosystems and can destroy the livelihoods of those who depend on natural resources for survival. Additionally, oil spills can have economic consequences as the cost of cleanup and recovery can be significant. To prevent oil spills, it is essential to establish effective regulations and emergency response plans and to hold companies accountable for their actions. Additionally, individuals and societies can take actions to reduce their dependence on fossil fuels, which has been linked to the danger of climate change, such as promoting renewable energy and supporting policies that prioritize environmental protection.